Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure you join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast. I am your host, Jack Darrell, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchen. Today we're talking to Michael Susi. Michael has been in real estate on a full-time basis since graduating college in 2019. Throughout his college years pursuing an undergraduate degree in fitness management, he developed a strong interest in real estate. Upon graduating, he had a decision to make: to pursue real estate part-time on top of another unrelated career, or take the leap and get into real estate full-time. Through networking with real estate professionals, he found his way into a small hard money lending firm, making this his primary focus. His experience in hard money lending ultimately provided him with the knowledge and resources to get into his own deal, his first deal being a flip of a triplex in North Berwick, Maine. In addition to hard money lending, Mike started WhitesPoint with his business partner, Mark, in July of 2021. WhitesPoint acquires and manages multifamily apartments and provides a way for the busy working professional to invest in multifamily real estate without the time commitment and added responsibilities. WhitesPoint currently owns and manages a total of 63 apartments across 2 properties in Georgia. Today, Mike spends his time managing their current portfolio of apartments, seeking the next apartment deal, and nurturing his hard money lending book of business. But before we get into Mike and Michael's episode, what's going on in the business these days?
Oh, things are good, man. We wrapped up a project for a record price in one of the southern New Hampshire markets we invest in. And it's kind of funny where, you really got to do your due diligence and you make your money on the buy, because we bought it so cheap and because the market went so hot. I went into this thinking it'd be more like a single or a double, ended up being a home run. And it's nice because a lot of times it's going the other way, but it just shows where you really, really have to be diligent. You can't overpay, and every now and then you get rewarded for doing things the right way. So it was a great feeling, and that's where we're at with that.
It's exciting. Walk away with a pocket full of cash.
Oh yeah. What about you? What do you got going on?
Wrapping up some refis currently, trying to, like you said, put some money in my pocket and so I can load up and see what happens next.
Love it. Love it. Speaking of refis and lending, one of my favorite guests we had on this episode, I got to know this young man a couple of years ago, and to see his growth and his maturity has been unbelievable. And, I don't know how anyone can have any excuse. Kid totally bet on himself. He's a little definition of it, and he's figured out as he's going, and now he's grown and he's full-time and he's killing it. Yeah.
I remember when you when you did that event at that, I forget what college it was.
Yeah.
Just, but you're like, this kid reached out, like he's going to be successful. Like, I think I met him back in like 2020 or 21, something like that. But yeah, really interesting. Like I really just admire how he like bet on himself, like right out of the gate. He wasn't going to go wait 13 years like I did before I took a risk and bet on myself. He's went after it, got after it, and he's reaping the benefits.
That's awesome.
And he's very deliberate. Like he's very deliberate in everything he does. He's very intentional. And I admire that. And I think more people should do the same.
Yes, future is very bright. And we're going to share a great episode with everyone. But before we do that, while we hear this week's episode of Tell Us Why is brought to you by.
Let's do it.
Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monteith, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interests at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
Okay, so welcome back to the podcast. Mike, while in college, started to get the real estate bug, and upon graduation, started working on the hard money lending side of real estate. Mike, we've heard your intro, and not many people out there are willing to take that risk right out of college into an unrelated field from what they majored in to hashtag bet on yourself. That being said, I'm also really interested to hear your response to the college question. towards the end of the episode, but before we get into that, Mike, what's going on? How did we get Mike here today?
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Michael,
I was like,
Mike. Who's gonna be Mike? Who's gonna be Michael?
I'm gonna be Michael. He's gonna be Mike. We'll make it easy, and
Okay.
we'll get into it. And I shared this story a couple episodes, maybe 10, 15 episodes ago. I don't know when. And it's funny because the actual person in the episode I talked about is now on the podcast, which is what sparked this great thought for me to reach out to one of my absolute favorite entrepreneurs, Mike Susi. And I get asked to go back to my college, ironically enough, because I got in plenty of trouble in college, to go give a keynote speech. And Mike can speak to the speech. I'd actually be curious from his perspective, because I know how it went in my head. And I know they thought they were going to come back and, Michael Ketchen's going to, play the prototypical, safe, education, rainbows, butterflies. And I was like, I'm going to be honest and raw with these kids. But I also expected, I can be an impassioned speaker. I can be a powerful guy. And I said, hey, I'm going to have a lot of people who are going to say all the right things and try to get my time in that moment. I said, so I got to put up some kind of buffer to kind of safeguard against that. And what I kind of told the group was, hey, give me a couple of weeks and then reach out and I'll be happy to sit down with you. And I really was. I as you guys know, former teacher, I love, helping any way I can. But I wanted people who are not going to waste my time. One person followed through. One person. And I am so glad and so proud of that person to be on this call today, because that was Mr. Michael Susi, who's absolutely a rock star. He's coming for all the money in all of real estate, and he's killing in a lot of ways today. So, Mike, thank you for being here. I hope that speech was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good that day. I don't know what your take on it was, Mike.
Well, Mike, I you're not going to like this, but I don't particularly remember all the bits and pieces. But I do. It was. We'll say this. It was impactful enough to catch my attention. And get myself to not only go up to you, but remember to follow up with you. But it was a good lesson to me. And I'm actually really glad that you had shared that story with me, because it was a good lesson to me of the importance of following up, which, is important in really just about anything, whether you're hunting down a deal or hunting down a meeting or anything in between. But yeah, great, good enough speech to catch my attention. And man, am I glad that we did. And I'm also eager to answer the college question at the end, because I have kind of a unique caveat to my answer. So, I'm excited to be here. Thanks a lot. And thanks for all the kind words too. I'm just getting started in a lot of senses, but I wouldn't have gotten started or taken the path that I have, or maybe not, without meeting you great people. So thank you.
You absolutely. So where are you at today, Mike? In the real estate spectrum? I know you're doing a few different things, cooking a few different things up. Why don't you give everyone a brief overview on that? Because I think you can speak to a couple different things.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say I wear two hats right now. One, and where I got started in real estate, is in what most people know as the hard money space, which is short-term lending for investment purposes. So things like fix and flips, multifamily BRRRRs, the first couple letters of that. A hard money loan is a great option and a great avenue and tool and resource to use when you're going down that road. And so that's how I got my start. When I got into hard money lending, I had no idea what it was. I like many people who are not as familiar with real estate investing, but I saw it as a good kind of avenue to learn about not only real estate, but the investing side of things, which is what I really wanted to get into. So that's kind of my first hat, and we can get into that in a little bit more detail. And then the other hat that I wear that I really started to ramp up last year is kind of the commercial multifamily side of things. So residential apartments, apartment complexes, and syndication. So taking down those larger assets, whether it be with raised capital or joint venture with a few other people. So finding one, the money, two, the deal, and then three, the team to operate it essentially, or if it's not a team, however I fit into that puzzle in terms of operations, which on an ongoing asset management role, I have, I do quite a bit of that myself. So that's kind of the two buckets that I fall into in this day and age.
All right. So much to unpack right there.
Yeah.
Jack, I see you nodding along. I'm sure you got about 8 million questions. You go ahead, Jack.
Take it easy on me, Jack.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of curious, like going into fitness management, like what was like, how do you go from fitness management? Like not a lot of people, I alluded in the soft intro here, like people go to college, they end up taking a shitty job that they don't like. Like not many people, like I did it for 13 years and I regret that. Well, I regret it, yeah.
Sure.
But like you made the leap initially. Like how does that happen? Like
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'll start in kind of my high school years. I definitely, without realizing it, was becoming more entrepreneurial. I was always looking for the next way to really, at that time, it was, how do I make money on the weekends? And that, looking back was like the entrepreneur in me coming out, whether it's knocking on my neighbors' doors and trying to get work from them every weekend until they had nothing else. And it went to the inside and I was, cleaning the inside, whatever it might be. And then, carry that forward. Going through college, originally, I just had a real passion for physical fitness, health, wellness. But I liked the business side of things. So that's where the fitness management came in. That was really a degree catered to starting a business around fitness, obviously. And then as I moved through college, I quickly learned it is hard, unless you're a Planet Fitness, it's hard to have a really, truly profitable gym without, really having a number of branches or franchises, whatever direction you go, you need to really scale that. And that wasn't as appealing. And all the while, I'm exploring everything under the sun, whether it's, e-commerce, stock market, real estate. And real estate was something I just kept coming back to. It was like, I go off to one thing, whether it be like the stock market, for instance, and then I come back to learn about real estate, and then I go off to something else, and then it would always fall back to real estate. So then fast forward to probably my last 2 years in school, I was a little bit more intentional about learning about, at that time it was wholesaling. Many people, go through that kind of phase, but wholesaling and honing in on real estate in particular, with the goal of when I get out, I want to get into investing in real estate, whether it's on the side or whatever else I'm doing, whether I'm personal training and doing that. And then what later became, I'm just going to take the leap here, and I'm going to try to network my tail off to the point where I can get in somewhere, trade, my time for experience and learning and education for a while, because all that, I kind of built up a little nest egg that I was sitting on that I'm really glad that I did, because it allowed me a little bit more of a buffer to learn and delay that gratification, if you will. And so, yeah, I took the leap, so to speak, and really, really glad that I did.
That's awesome. And staying with that, Mike, looking at the hats, and I think something you shared there that I want everyone to really listen to is Mike was super intentional with his action. The path wasn't necessarily crystal clear with every move he made, but he was intentional with the action of knowing where he wanted to end up, which is a perfect segue into, you mentioned hard money lending. So I'm going to ask a two-part question, because in trying to educate the community, let's really define what that is, because I don't know if we've ever actually touched on that. And then let's talk about how that segued and gave you the foundation to look at real estate investing as an investor, if you can.
Yeah, definitely. So first question, what is hard money lending? I think the best way I would summarize it is if you try to go to a bank, for instance, they're going to have this long list of criteria that you need to meet. You have a smoking hot credit score. You need a full appraisal. The timeline to get it done is incredibly long, and it's just less versatile. Hard money lending is essentially a resource that makes that a lot quicker. And the reason being, in my case, I work with two parties. One, the person that's trying to get the deal done that needs to borrow the funds, and two, the investor or lender in this case. And that lender is somebody who just wants a good return on their money, understands real estate, but wants to be a little bit more passive in their approach. And so I connect those two dots to basically make it possible to get a deal done. And then I guess kind of to further define, more often than not, it's very short term, because you're going to be paying a higher rate as a result of a more risky loan in a lot of senses. Mm-hmm. You'll be paying a higher rate, generally interest only, and for a much shorter period of time. So anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes even shorter. And then, the cases that you can lend under are almost limitless. It's not like, with the one exception of residential owner occupants, but it opens up, I can lend on commercial properties, I can lend on a fix and flip. And I can also get creative with, if somebody doesn't have cash to put down on something, maybe they have a ton of equity in some other property, but they don't have the time to liquidate it and so on. I can act as a bridge in some events as well.
Yeah, and that's really impactful. As I've touched on in the past, the way I've got going is we did a lot of creative finance, and hard money lending was an instrumental part of what we do that we've scaled up to. And it's a great resource that Mike, will definitely have to have you involved more with the community, speaking to it more.
Mm-hmm.
One of our lenders as well, QS Private Lending, another great person. That's what they do. Luke over there, shout out to Luke. It's really a resource that I feel, we're not teaching this stuff in school, and it serves a purpose. It can be leveraged creatively. You can also get in trouble with it. You have to be, it goes back to, it's still investing. You have to make your money to buy, so you have to buy it right. Which is a perfect question to segue into now on the investor side. You mentioned syndication. Jack, is he the first? I think Axel's done some syndication, but why don't you define what a syndication is, Mike, and what that looks like to the people at home listening?
Yeah, so I'll define it in the most general sense of syndication can be done in many different realms, but with regards to real estate, it's really raising the money from outside passive investors to really get the deal done. So in most cases, in our case, it's for that initial, what most of us refer to as a down payment. Occasionally we'll raise some more in reserves or even renovation capital, but really raising the money to be able to do the deal that we wouldn't be able to do with our own money. Because, a lot of these deals are larger, so it's harder to come up with the down payment of, $1 million, $600,000, $2 million, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the more general term of syndication defined, or how I would define it.
Yeah.
Google it. I'm going to give you the Google definition. A real estate syndication is when a group of investors pull together their capital to jointly purchase a large real estate property.
There you go. Thank you,
There you
Jack.
go. With less
here for the
words,
Google.
even better. Yeah, than my rambling.
All right, Mike. So what is the why? What is the motivation around saying, you know what, I'm going to go through this 4-year degree. I'm not going to go take the year abroad and be a ski bum. I'm not going to go, to play it safe. What is the why? What is the why that gets a Michael Susi, young entrepreneur, fired up and taking all what some might consider risky in this unconventional path with? Now, a couple years into it, I think you definitely made the right choice. But I know, having the pleasure of meeting you when you were first starting, it wasn't clear. I mean, you were doing a lot of stuff that a lot of people, I'm sure, thought you were kind of nuts for at the time. What has pushed you through? What is the motivation to get after it like this?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is, I think of my parents. They're reaching an age where they should be retiring soon, and I want their comfortable, and comfort is a word that comes to mind. I want for them to be comfortable in retirement, to be not to have to worry from a financial perspective. So obviously the finance is the tangible thing that I'm seeking, but when I'm within that, I want to be comfortable and have some freedom and not be as restricted with getting my parents to where they need to be and comfortably live in their retirement, enjoy retirement for what it's supposed to be for them. And then with regards to myself, I don't want to feel restricted. I want to have the ability to do the things that I want when I want. And then also another kind of more, another answer I might have is because I really truly enjoy kind of the journey itself. I like the grind of what I do. There are some days that you work a lot and you're up all night. And in the moment it might suck, but then you step away from it and then you take a look back, which I think is very important, by the way, and you reflect and you say, okay, I did that. Like, what else can I do? And I think that chase is super important and very rewarding internally. Like, I think the reflection is super important and to recognize not only what you did, but okay, if I can do that, then every other problem that I encounter is a lot smaller. So always kind of pushing the envelope.
So real estate investing and syndication isn't all Bugattis and Lamborghinis and Mai Tais on a private beach. What? That's what Instagram told me. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's the real reason I got into real estate right there. You just uncovered it.
That was a great answer.
Pina coladas.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'd love to have those things down the road, but it's a ways out right now, and there's a lot of doors to be purchased before that. That's for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with hard work, which I think is one of the reasons I've appreciated about you, because it's like that's like a bad buzzword right now, right, Jack? No one wants to work anymore, Jack. It's don't do that. It's gonna be easy. It's gonna be a shortcut.
Just dance on TikTok and you can make millions. It's easy.
It just absolutely fucking kills me.
See, Mike, come on.
I've tried a lot of things, but I know to stay in my lane and not do that.
I like it.
Just one thing that you mentioned that I kind of wanted to touch on that I feel like is lost. Like, I feel like it's programmatically.
Oh my God. And it only
Whatever.
took 20 minutes in to not know how to read.
Through our educational system, what you said, you can do what you want when you want. Like, it's not that difficult to be able to do that. Like, you put in the hours in the beginning. Like, I feel like you don't have to work 9 to 5 is what I'm saying. Like, you can do what you want when you want. Like, granted, those days are going to come when you need to grind. Like, that past actually week and a half has been like that for me.
Yeah.
But if I don't want, like, tomorrow, Friday, I'm probably not doing anything, to be honest. Like, I'm going to unwind. We did a few podcasts today. Like, I'm going to unwind. I'm going to do probably little or nothing. Jake and I are having a Cuban tonight, and that's going to be my wind down. But, like, I just feel like it's lost on a lot of people that, like, you don't have to do that grind for 60 years of your life. Like, if you work towards it deliberately, which you're doing at a very young age, which I highly respect and commend you for, but, like, if you live with intention and live deliberately, like, it's 100% an option.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I do think that you make a good point of, like, it is not immediate. And I think a lot of a misconception is, I'm self-employed, in a generic sense, but some people are like, oh, it must be great. You can do whatever you want when you want. And it's almost the opposite, because you're always, or for me, I'm always clocked in, and it's hard to really be off. But the main goal being, ultimately, I will be able to have the freedom and the time. But yeah, up front, you're definitely loading it up front.
Oh, we just talked about it between episodes of recording here. I go, man, it's kind of crazy. I'm at on paper to the outside of the craziest time in my investing career. We're stabilizing 111 unit. We're wrapping up the stabilization of a 7 unit. It's been a nightmare. We're under contract to sell a bunch of units, crazy 1031s. I haven't had to look at my phone all day today because of the systems and the process, right?
That's
but
amazing.
People see that now and they go, oh, it's here, it's easy. They don't see the 5 years of stress and the grind and the fighting and the thinking all day and the problem solving all day. And it is kind of like that give and take. And I think Jack just hit the nail on the head. You get the flexibility to what Mike's speaking about, but Mike is on the phone, making phone calls, problem solving, thinking all day, which it's exhausting. You're making decisions all day, every day. And there is no off switch. There is no set schedule, which I think is hilarious. It can be 10 p.m. It can be 10 a.m. It can be 2 days of lull time. I mean, on the lending side, real quick, let's probably get to it before we transition. You guys went through the pandemic. And I mean, within the pandemic in the hard money space, there's already been like 4 different market cycles. It's been nuts. You know what I mean? Speaking about that, what was that like when you go from all of a sudden the world stops? Is anyone going to buy any real estate? This is my livelihood. That must have been terrifying. What was that like for you guys?
No question. I think, for me personally, it was an immediate thought of, okay, being ready for some sort of transition. And that transition, I didn't even know what it was going to look like. Was it in the lending space? Was it in, I knew it was going to be in real estate somewhere, but I was preparing for a massive pivot. And I think that, everything's cyclical in some nature, but one good thing about hard money is that there are opportunities on the lending side, buying and selling of debt. That's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. And I haven't, in these up times, there's not as much of it. But there are good opportunities within hard money lending. But there's a learning curve with that too. And I'm, that's no secret to me. I don't know a lot about that side of the business yet. So I guess to answer your question of like, what did it feel like? It was it was very stressful. There's no question. Ultimately, very thankful because, as we all know, real estate continued to push along, and I have some great borrowers that have only ramped up their business, which, for me is a positive. Loan amounts continue to go up, so my per deal cost, what I'm making per deal is a little bit higher, so that's a positive that came out of it. But yeah, there's no question with any changes in the market, I have to kind of react and reflect on that. And that's why I also think it's important that, I'm engaged in these syndications as well, because I want a little bit of diversity myself in what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's incredibly well said, which is actually a perfect segue into a question we ask every person, every week, every guest on the Tell Us Why podcast. What is one book or resource you'd recommend to the Tell Us Why community?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I'm only about halfway through this one, but I'm enjoying it so much that I will share it. But my first choice would have been Think and Grow Rich, but I wanted to add a little bit more value than the book that probably 50% of people give you. Right now I'm reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
And it's kind of in the same vein as Think and Grow Rich, but it's definitely very much a psychology book. And speaks to kind of controlling your subconscious and training your subconscious, so to speak, which I'm big on psychology. I think it's super important. I think, entrepreneurs, probably most of us have a liking for it. And that's the reading I enjoy the most, is kind of training your brain. So that's a really interesting book. I'd recommend it, whether you're a real estate investor or doing anything else in the world.
Great. I hadn't heard of that. Jack, you heard of the one?
No,
I've never
I've not heard of that. I was going to say, it's the first time for me, so I'll definitely
Great.
have to check
That
one
was
out.
the goal.
New content. All right. So I'm really interested in undertaking the college question and whether or not it's worth it. So let's kick it off to the big three.
It's now time for the Big Three segment, brought to you by QS Private Lending. Are you looking to finance your next deal quickly and reliably with less hassle and paperwork? QS Private Lending is one of the oldest and largest hard money lenders to real estate investors in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Our quick and simple short-term loans require no appraisals and have enabled hundreds of builders and investors to profitably acquire and renovate thousands of residential and commercial properties. To experience the QS difference for yourself, call or text Luke Conroy today at 315-323-0250. That's 315-323-0250. QS Private Lending.
Now it is time for the big three. These are the three questions we ask every guest every week. And here it is, kicking it off with the college question. So in your opinion, is college worth it?
For me personally, it was worth it because I would have never met Mike. And, that's that. But from a more general sense, and I still waffle on this, I'm not even sure if I have a real conclusive answer. Like, obviously the lawyers, the doctors, sometimes it's necessary. One thing I did want to throw in my insight on it with regards to college is I was a student athlete, and I got a lot out of being on an athletic team in college. I think the level of play, with an increased level of play from high school and a level of seriousness in many programs in college, there's a lot of really good traits, and I kind of just overall discipline you need to have with doing that. The collaborative kind of environment of a team, knowing how to work with people that are very different from you. They might be an expert in, fitness management, or they might be an expert and they might be, going to school to be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever it might be. I think being able to collaborate with people that think very differently is super important. And that's something that being a student athlete, kind of brought to me. It also exposed me to, the community more. So college, from that respect, was, I think if you're a student athlete, there's a lot of advantages to it. If you just take the education, I really do strongly believe that you can get, an MBA, so to speak, without going to college, talking to the right people. But you have to be guided. You have to meet people. Like, you need to meet somebody like Mike that is willing to kind of show you and introduce you to those people, and then from there the web opens right on up. So you need to be willing to put yourself out there. But I absolutely think that college is not a must by any means, especially if you're willing to put yourself out there and make yourself uncomfortable and just network your tail off.
And to give a caveat to that, just because we went through it, is, remember, I said that the key part of the story, yeah, okay, I gave him some tips, phone calls, whatever. But Mike really took the action. Mike followed the guidelines. Mike reached out. Mike followed up. Mike made the uncomfortable decision of saying, I'm going to take more of a commission lending position versus traditional safe salary. I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to do it my way. I remember you were trying to get to Arizona. I remember we had some really good in-depth conversations. And
you remember that? I don't. Yeah, it's crazy.
I remember. Well, because it really hit me, and that's kind of what what we're doing here. And what I really want people to emphasize is, it's been fun to be a quasi mentor. I hate that word, but I don't really have a better one for it, to kind of help where I can help. But really, it's you taking action. I'm just pointing in a direction, but you're doing the follow up and you're doing all that. And you're growing, well beyond what we ever talked about. So that's really what I want people to take away, which is a perfect transition to the next question. What is one piece? Go ahead.
What sport did you play in college?
I played lacrosse in college.
Okay.
I don't know. I just want to know.
That's all I got for you. Sorry.
Don't worry, Mike. I get to do this fun thing with him all the time because he just has these brain I don't know if he has.
I was curious. I'm sure some people want to know where you played.
God. All right. What is one piece of actionable advice you go back and give to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, that was a good one, and it really made me think. I guess actionable advice is whatever you do, be decisive. If I was to sum it up in one word, be very decisive. And whatever the actionable step, so it's a step beyond that, but whatever the actionable step is, make the decision to do it as fast as you can, as fast as you possibly can, and with proper education. But and then a step further from that, once you do that, do not hesitate in telling people about it. Get the word out there about what you're doing. So once the decision's made, I think one thing at the beginning I could have done a lot differently is be a little bit more confident in what I was doing. I felt like I needed to know everything before I could go out to the world and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. And that's so far from the truth. And that's probably the biggest piece of kind of advice that I could give is have some confidence, be decisive, and you don't need to know everything before you go out and share it.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, you're just gonna take a lot of action and just figure it out. That's the best way to do it.
If you're responsible about it, but yeah.
There you go. All right, Jack, hit him with that one.
Okay, so the other end of the spectrum, what is one thing you would want your 90-year-old self to say to you?
That I'm comfortable. I want to be 90, and just to summarize again in one word, because I like to do that, but comfortable. And that my kids are comfortable and my grandkids are comfortable. That's really, the biggest thing. And that I enjoyed the journey and that I accomplished things to the point where, like I said earlier, the challenges that might seem big to a lot of people and problems that might seem big to a lot of people, they don't feel as substantial to me at that point.
I like that. Very well said. Mike, where can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Probably LinkedIn is where I'm most active. So search my name, Michael Susi, on LinkedIn. I should pop right up. I'm also happy to give out my cell phone. I'm more than willing to hop on a call.
Go ahead. We've had a few guests. You might get a couple texts, but go ahead.
No, I'd love to. I'm at 207-838-5987, and feel free to text, call. Love talking to people, love connecting, and I think only good can come from it. So, and I want to give back.
I like it.
All right. So before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to you want to tell the listeners?
No. I would just say, obviously I do a couple of things, and within both of those, they all involve money. And there's, I can offer kind of a diverse selection for investors, whether it's shorter term, longer term, debt, equity. But the main kind of common theme there is capital. So I'm always looking for capital partners. But other than that, like I said, happy to reach out or happy to chat with anybody. Please feel free to reach out, whether you're just getting started, whether you're local, away, happy to chat.
Awesome. Jack, where can people learn more about the Tell Us Why podcast?
Check out telluswhypodcast.com. All Mike's info will be up there. All prior guests info will be up there. Also listen to each podcast on telluswhypodcast.com. If you don't already follow us on social media, you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. All the links are in the description below.
Yes, check us out, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Leave a rating and review. It's a huge help. Get connected with great guests like Michael Susi, and maybe you'll be the next person to bet on yourself. Jack, quote of the week.
Okay, so this is a weird one. Sam Horton sent me this one, I guess from a month or two ago. He said it should have been his, but its failure is just an early attempt at success. It's actually a Theodore Roosevelt quote, but Sam Horton's trying to pawn it off as his own. So that is it for today. Be sure to join us for next week's episode. And until next week,
bet on yourself.